Despite my reservations about crunch at Naughty Dog and the way in which Sony and Naughty Dog seem to be trying to silence criticism of The Last of Us 2, I did pick up the game last week, and I have been playing it over the weekend. I've only put in about 5 hours so far, but apart from the fact that it appears to be a little too episodic for my taste, I've been enjoying it, and I'm intrigued by the various factions involved this time. However, I'm in no position to review the game here because, as I say, I haven't got far enough to make any real judgments. I do want to talk about the reactions to the game in certain quarters though, because it's been particularly vociferous, to the point where people have been accusing mainstream reviewers of being paid off. The game has been review bombed on Metacritic, and Neil Druckmann, among others, has come in for a barrage of personal abuse. Let's take a look at the 3 points in order. First, the critics' reviews. If you look at Metacritic today, there's a stark difference between the critic score of 95 and the user score of 3.9. That tells you right there that not all is well with the state of Denmark. But why is there such a discrepancy? Well, many of the people who are most animated about this game and its apparent SJW leanings will tell you that it's because the critics' reviews have been paid for. And if I'm being honest, that's not entirely implausible. I know myself from listening to games journalists and ex-games journalists that there are a lot of inducements to write good reviews. Everything from free copies of games to free trips to preview events where people are wined and dined to veiled threats of ad revenue being pulled should a review not be as glowing as the developer would like. So it does happen, and let's face it, we've all heard the stories. And it goes with every business. But there's no direct evidence of people being paid off for reviews of The Last of Us 2, and believing something isn't the same as being able to prove it. As the saying goes, put up or shut up. While I think the usual inducements may well be at work here, I don't suspect they're any worse than for any other AAA game, and the fact is that many of these critics may just be a little more open to some of the themes and ideas in The Last of Us 2 than those who are getting offended by the very idea of characters being gay or transgender. And let's be honest, if that side of things doesn't bother you, and it doesn't bother me, then you're going to be far more likely to approach the game positively. After all, we're all influenced by our preconceptions and by our prejudices. And that brings me to the review bombing. I honestly find it extremely odd that the same people who without a shred of evidence complain about Sony apparently buying reviews and who bemoan the SJW agenda among critics are also those who are quite happy to dogpile on the game because of their own agenda. First, I think you need to make your minds up. Are critics being bought, or are they part of an SJW conspiracy to feminise gamers, as I put it in a previous video? Or maybe it's both. Maybe these people are SJW shills who have an agenda but are so morally bankrupt that they want paying for it. SJW mercenaries for hire, as it were. Oops, I think I might have just stoked the flames of the conspiracists. Secondly though, isn't it a bit hypocritical to accuse others of being driven by an agenda while simultaneously going out of your way to try and attack and damage an art form because it doesn't fit with your weird worldview? And look, don't get me wrong here, when I read the Metacritic user reviews, some of them were genuine and fair in their criticism of the game, and I might even agree with some or all of the points raised once I finish it myself. But it's not those reviews I have an issue with. Being critical of a game or any other art form is perfectly valid as long as you're looking at it on its own merits and not attacking it based on your own agenda. Especially if you're simultaneously attacking other critics for having their agenda. I mean, just listen to what some of the Metacritic user reviews said. There's a lot of woke trash in the game, a lot of gender and identity politics. The game isn't about telling a story of Ellie, it's about pushing an agenda to you. 0 out of 10 wouldn't touch it with a stick. Focuses on SJW stuff more than actual players. It's an SJW game, terrible story in the process that makes this game unbearable even to finish, what a waste of time and money. But The Last of Us franchise is all about the story, now it's an SJW game. So many of the reviews seem to be angry because The Last of Us 2 had LGBTQ characters, which was odd given that so many people assured me in the comments of my previous videos on the subject that had nothing to do with it. And given how many reviews were posted on the day the game was released, I have to wonder how many of these people actually finished or even played the game before submitting their reviews. No, this was dogpiling. It was about trying to damage the game because it contained gay characters and storylines. And that? Well, that's bullshit. But it didn't stop there. The anti-SJW crowd weren't happy with dogpiling on the game itself. They had to go after the developers as well, and in particular, Neil Druckmann. And if you think I'm making it up, you can look for yourself and find videos attacking Druckmann and calling him Neil Cuckman. Oh, it's so funny to come up with such a funny name. Oh, you're hilarious. These guys should be stand-ups. These kind of videos are encouraging dogpiling, as I say, and they're pure cowardice as far as I'm concerned. As I said before, it's perfectly valid to criticise a video game, and I'll even go further and say it's perfectly valid to criticise the producers of that game. I've done it myself often enough. But this isn't criticism, it's deliberately designed to stir those up with similar views. In short, it's a kind of bullying. Just look at some of the comments. Make me play as a transtard and I will not play your game. I'm sure he, that's Neil Druckmann I presume, spilled his soy drink all over his wife's boyfriend, lol. Neil missed his chance to be an even greater ally. He should have had Abby pegging his avatar from behind. Neil is the type of guy to drive his wife to her boyfriend's house and then wait outside for a couple of hours in his car until she's done getting her cheeks clapped. And here's one about Troy Baker. The whole experience is also marred by soy boy Troy Baker's whining and begging for people to play such a piece of garbage game. Wow, these people are comic geniuses. God dear, oh dear. But come on, now, having heard all that, tell me there isn't a subsection of people who hate the game because they perceive it as being an SJW game and because it's got gay and trans people in it. And here's what I don't get. If you have such a negative attitude towards LGBTQ people, why would you pick this game up in the first place? We already knew that Ellie was gay. So do you people just enjoy being triggered? Or do you just enjoy dogpiling on something because, you know, there's a group in there that you don't agree with? You don't like their lifestyle or the fact that they're not straight or the fact that they're trans or whatever it might be. Is that the problem you have? Do you feel so uncomfortable that you have to get involved? You know, if you don't like it, why don't you just walk away? Just leave it alone. You don't have to play the game. Leave the game to people who may enjoy it. And as I say, you may not enjoy it for other reasons, and if those reasons are genuine reasons, then fine, say so. As I say, I'm not far enough into the game to come to a final conclusion as to whether I think it's any good or not. And I may end up liking it, or I may end up hating it. I may even come to the conclusion that the characterizations, plot, etc. are handled badly in the game, and if I do, well, I'll say so. It's not a given that a great game is going to get a great sequel, and it's quite possible that Naughty Dog have dropped the ball on this one. But this infantile whining because the game has gay characters who behave like gay people is, well, it's just sad and embarrassing and makes the game community look like it's populated by a bunch of horses' asses. And as for the name-calling of Neil Druckmann, Troy Baker and others, does that really help your case? When you do that, you really do play right into the hands of those who would paint gamers as nasty little man-children who need to grow up. If you want to be taken seriously, try behaving seriously. Try behaving like actual adults. Because this is embarrassing. Right, that's me done. If you like this one, don't forget to like and subscribe and share it on social media, and come into the comments and let me know what you think about review bombing and the rest of it. I'm off to get myself a cup of tea, and I'll speak to you guys in the next one. Bye.